if you recall, I have talked about the different factors in the managerial effectiveness, and that is the one is becoming the motivation. Now, we will take that is the how the motivation takes place in the interpersonal relationship. So, it will be the definition of the motivation, the nature of motivation, self determination theory, dimensions of motivation that we will talk. Now, here when we are talking about the motivation, a set of the energetic forces that originates both within as well as beyond an individual's being to initiate work related behavior and determine its form, direction, intensity and the duration is there, and therefore, this will become another important aspect on the individual's being to initiate work related behavior. Work motivation refers to the human drive to work in order to gain rewards from that work, whether those rewards by physical, emotional, social or monetary. Research shows that work motivation varies with age, individual psychology and is often related to the ability and environmental factors. So, when we are talking about the motivation and willingness, the first and foremost comes with that is this concerns with the energy and direction, persistence and equifinality, all aspects of the activation and intention is there, and therefore, we will be having this particular the nature of motivation very high. Motivation has been a central and the perennial issue in the field of the psychology, for it is at the core of the biological, cognitive and social regulations. In the real world, motivation is highly valued because of its consequences, that is whatever the naturally when the person's employees will be highly motivated, then they will producing the more and more the better consequences. People can be motivated because they value an activity or because there is a strong external coercion is there, and a permanent concern to those in roles such as manager, teacher, religious leader, coach, healthcare provider and parent that involve mobilizing others to act. Now, here we will talk about the self determination theory, and in the self determination theory, that is there is a competence, that is the need to be effective in dealing with the environment, and this particular competence, right, that is the where it is matching with the now individuals, that personality which is becoming the more and more important in the aspects of the knowledge, that is what knowledge the person is having in that particular competence, and then the ability, what ability person is having, and then that particular skill, there is the skills which the person having. So, therefore, in that case this particular knowledge, ability and skills, the one more component which have been involved in this particular competency is that is the whether his hobby and habit they are also contributing towards his goal or not, and therefore, the another important aspect that comes about the habit. So, if a person is able to go his with his competence related to the high level of knowledge, that is 5, and then he develops the ability is there, and that I have discussed in managerial effectiveness, that is there is ability is about the skills, and his skills may be the technical skills, that is a job knowledge skills, the person knows his job or not. The first and foremost in the competency is that is his job knowledge. If the person is having that is the core competency, that is a job knowledge, then nobody can stop him. But if the person is not having the job knowledge, then every time he will be criticized, and if he will criticize, then there will be more frustration and depression will be there. So, therefore, in that case, in the ability, that is a job knowledge is there, but top level of job knowledge is only not enough, because that knowledge that has to be supported by the HR skills, human relation skills, working with the people, working with our superiors, subordinates and colleagues, and then definitely in that case how do you manage your management, in managements of your and that particular ability and the skill, that HR skill, that will be becoming very important is there. But when we talk about the pyramid, in the pyramid we talk about the data into information, information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom and wisdom into truth. So, this is the pyramid. So, this data into information, information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom, and wisdom into truth. So, therefore, in that case if you will find that is this particular your skill, that your conceptual skill and analytical skills. Nowadays we talk about the analytical skills, and in analytical skills how do you analyze this particular information. So, that will becoming the important aspect. Now, here we have to also see that is the not only the skills, the another important dimension, and that is the habit. So, whether the employee is having a habit towards his professional success or not. Simple example I would like to give, that is for the post of the financial expertise. If somebody is having the habit of the stock exchange analysis, that is his hobby also. So, therefore, in that case what it becomes, it becomes a regular feature which is making him the expertise, and if your habit is also matching with your professional goal, naturally the person will feel highly motivated and his contribution will be much more. So, therefore, need to be effective in dealing with the environment, and when you are talking about the competitive environment, to meet the requirement of the environment, and these type of the issues, they are required to be very competent enough, and therefore, it will become the successful only when you are having the full competency. So, person will feel highly motivated when there is a need to be effective in dealing with the environment, the surrounding work culture environment especially. So, therefore, if the work culture environment is able to match, then he will be becoming highly motivated. Then the humans three basic needs are there. So, need to control the course of their lives, the autonomy, right. So, that we will talk in detail later, and then the relatedness is there. So, therefore, these three basic needs, it is about the competency, then the autonomy, that is need to control the course of their lives, and relatedness. So, it becomes very much important, that is at a workplace. I have just talked about in the previous session about the psychological contract, and then when we talk about the psychological contract, it becomes very important, that is how much you are attached to your organization, emotionally attached to your organization. If you are emotionally attached to your organization, then definitely you will be having an affectionate workplace. If you are having the affectionate workplace, you will be feeling the much belongingness, citizenship behavior to your organization, and therefore, this particular value systems, that is about the competence, affection, relatedness, and the autonomy, that is becoming a very important aspects. So, now we will discuss into the details these particular three psychological needs. So, Desi and Ryan suggested that when people experience these three things, they become self determined and able to be intrinsically motivated. Intrinsically motivated means from inside, they themselves are feeling motivated to pursue the things that interest them. Autonomy, the universal urge to be causal agents of one's own life and act in harmony with one's integrated self. People need to feel in control of their own behaviors and goals, and therefore, they understand, that is the whatever that they are having their own behavior and goals, because of this autonomy they decide their own behavior and goals, and refers to the being self initiating, and then it is not like that somebody is pushing them. That is, you have to perform. They take their own initiative to perform, and as a result of which they are regulating themselves towards their own action, and therefore, if I have to do the job, because my intrinsic motivation is very high, so I will be taking the self initiating and self regulating will be there. Competence, seek to control the outcome and experience mastery, as it is three psychological needs. People need to gain mastery of task and learn different skills are there. So, therefore, it becomes very important, that is these psychological needs, people are need to gain the mastery and learn different skills. They involves the understanding how to attain various external and internal outcomes, and being efficacious in performing the necessary actions. Third one is that is the relatedness. In the universe want to interact the connected to and experience caring for others. As it is three psychological needs, people need to be experience a sense of belonging and attachment to other people. Involves developing secure and satisfying connections with others in one's social milieu. So self-determination theory is three psychological needs if not met high lead to the tendency to withdraw concern for others and focus on oneself, or in more extreme cases to engage in psychological withdrawal or the antisocial activity as compensatory motives for the unfulfillment needs. How exactly do people go about fulfilling these three needs? SDT begins by the embracing the assumptions that all individuals have natural, innate and constructive tendencies to develop an ever more elaborated and unified sense of self. So, therefore, this is becoming very important to understand, that is the what type of the fulfillment of these needs are there. That is, we assume people have a primary propensity to forge interconnections among aspects of their own psyches as well as with other individuals and groups in their social worlds. So, according to Ryan, when we talk about these three types of the competency, autonomy and relatedness, and in their social worlds, it becomes very important. That is how they are making this particular style of leaderships. Social environments can, according to this perspective, either facilitates and enables the growth and integration propensities with which the human psyche is endowed, or they can disrupt, forestall and fragment these processes, resulting in behaviors and inner experiences that represents the darker side of the unity. So, here we will talk about the dimensions of the work motivation given by the Ryan, and here first we will talk about the need for autonomy. So, when we talk about the need for autonomy, their basic psychological needs are there, and if we talk about the Maslow's theory, and then in that case we start with the basic psychological needs, and then we talk in the Maslow's theory, we talk about the physiological needs, and then in physiological needs, right, in the physiological needs in Maslow's theory, from the physiological need we go to the safety need, and from the safety we are going to the social needs. So, therefore, in that case the psychological needs they are becoming more towards the social needs, and what is required is, that is the whenever we are talking about the personal connectivity with the others and these social needs, and that will be relatedness will be there, and this will connect with, that is the how we are talking about this type of the affectionate workplace is there. So, therefore, all these three needs, need for autonomy, need for competence, need for relatedness, that is a social need is there. So, they are actually talking about the extension work of the needs by the whatever has been given by the Maslow's. So, basic psychological needs when we talk about, then we talk about the intrinsic motivation, that is a perceived locus of the causality scale, and then we find that is the whether it is inside or outside. So, when we talk about the intrinsic is there, so it is within from oneself, and if that is from the oneself, then definitely it will be more and more towards the intrinsic motivation will be there, the employees will be self motivated, that is defining features and reward contingencies, for example, enjoyment, pleasure and fun. So, therefore, there is no discernible reinforcement or the reward is there. So, the persons, those who are having intrinsic motivation, so how they pursue their intrinsic motivation, because they enjoy, and therefore, they are having the pleasure and fun at the workplace, as a result of which we will find, that is they are defining the features and reward contingencies. Positions on the relative autonomy continuum. So, autonomous motives, that is the high autonomy is there. So, therefore, when we talk about there is an intrinsic motivation within perceived locus of causality scale, that is inside is there, we will find that is the people are taking the work as a place of enjoyment, place of pleasure and fun, so that they are able to contribute more and more, and as a result of which we will find that is there is a autonomous motives or high autonomy is there, high autonomy is there, and there is they are having the highly integrated. So, degree of internalization is maximum here. the employees at the workplace, and they find themselves highly motivated, and as a result of which you will find that is the degree of internalization is very high. Naturally when the persons are very highly motivated, so how will be their behavior with others, their interpersonal relationship, and then you will find their interpersonal relationship is very, very strong. When we are talking about the extrinsic motivation, in extrinsic motivation we talk about the integrated regulations. Integrated regulations are the behaviors that are fully incorporated into the repertoire of behaviors that satisfy psychological needs, and therefore, in that case in the extrinsic motivation the employees, they are dependent on others. If they are dependent on others, then definitely they we have to see. Now, here I would also like to mention, like here it was a physiological need, septennial need, social need, self esteem need and self actualization need. So, this was a Maslow, but further when we talk about the extrinsic motivation, right, and therefore, in that case here I would like to mention the Herzberg's theory of needs. In Herzberg's theory we will find that is the satisfaction, dissatisfaction, but here no dissatisfaction. So, we are supposed to be very, very clear, that is the those who are having the satisfaction, there is no need of the integrated regulations, and that is because they are having the more intrinsic motivation of themselves is there. Those who are having the dissatisfaction, and that will be the A motivation, and when that A motivation will be there, lack of the intentionality and the personal causation, and therefore, they will not be motivated. But when we talk about the no dissatisfaction, and when you want to convert this particular group into the satisfaction. So, always it is my thinking, that is the those who need you, they will identify you. There will be people who will never need you, but there will be some people to themselves it is not clear that this type of the input can help them, and therefore, you can motivate them by giving this type of input, and therefore, that particular segment as I mentioned here. So, this particular segment that will we here the extrinsic motivation will be important. If we create the extrinsic motivation to them, so therefore, from the no dissatisfaction to they will go to the satisfaction. This is what I feel so. So, therefore, in that case integrated regulation is the behaviors that are fully incorporated into the repertoire of behaviors that easily satisfy the psychological needs are there. Then the identified regulations for personally held values such as learning new skills, right, internally then the referenced contingency is there, and therefore, in that case you will find that is the there is a, they are having the identified the regulations are there. Then introjected regulations are there for avoiding external source of disapproval or gaining externally referred approval is there. Then definitely in that case also it will become very, very important, that is the employees they are getting the extrinsic motivation. So, how it is to be done for avoiding external sources of disapproval. So, if there are the disapproval are there, then those disapproval, right, that has to be discarded, or gaining externally referenced approval, and therefore, what is required is that is the gaining the more and more approval from the outside, that will be highly motivating factor. When we are talking about the external regulations, in external regulations for external reinforcements such as the gaining rewards or the avoiding punishment is there, and if this is so, then there definitely in that case we will find that is the external regulations are playing a very important role as an extrinsic motivation is there. So, in intrinsic motivation there is no need for much for the motivate the persons, because we are already having they are themselves are having they are highly motivated, but in the extrinsic motivation that we have to need. The basic psychological need which plays the role in dimensions of work motivation, and that is about the integrated regulation is there. So, whatever is happening in the organization, they are fully incorporated. Identified regulation is there, therefore, their value systems, their work that has been identified. Introjected regulation is there, that is the discarding the disapproval and welcoming the approval system, that is becoming the more introjected regulations are there. And the external regulation is there for external reinforcement, such as gaining rewards or avoiding punishment is there, and then we will find that is the extrinsic motivation that is becoming complete. Now, the third dimension in this it is becoming the A motivation. In A motivation, it is a lack of the intentionality and personal causation is there. So, if we are lacking into the intentionality, then definitely it is becoming more alarming, and so the person will be the not motivated, and they will be part of the A motivation is there. Now, in any organization, what is required? When we talk about the any organization, in any organization, the intrinsic motivation that should be very high. So, if you are having the high intrinsic motivation and the low A motivation, that should be the first condition. Second is the practices. Practices related to the psychological need and the extrinsic motivation. So, when you want to balance the work motivation, then definitely we have to create the feature, like here in for example intrinsic motivation, it has been mentioned defining features and reward contingencies. So, intrinsic motivation will be that if I will perform more and better, I will be getting the more and better rewards. So, this feeling and this culture of the organization that has to be encouraged and promoted. So, as a result of which we will find position on relative autonomy, right. So, that will be highly autonomy towards the intrinsic motivation. Dear friends, this is becoming very important, that is we create the work culture, we create the work practices by involvement of the employees, by creating their commitment, then by helping them to perform, and then creating a work culture to work together, and then that autonomy and giving them the freedom, flexibility, right to take risk, then definitely in that case the autonomy that will be much better. So, high autonomy is there, high is the motivation is there. So, it is not like this, that is the subordinate, that he has to go and request to the superior for his rewards and incentives, and he is looking for the help. No, it is automatically, it is built in the culture and it is coming to him, and therefore, as a result of which we will find that it is becoming very important, that is the person is getting this position on the relative autonomy continuum is there. Now, these autonomous motives that is created through the intrinsic motivation, and that will create more creativity and innovation at the workplace. Highly motivated employees, they will be creating the workplace and innovations in the organizations. So, if you want to create an innovative organization, if you want to make this sustainable, then in that case this intrinsic motivation will help. And not only this will also create the high autonomy. So, therefore, in that case it is becoming very important, that is whenever we are talking about these particular dimensions of the workplace. So, what is required? Intrinsic motivation, then the autonomous behavior, which will create the more creative and innovative organizations that will be created. Now, here the another dimensions we will talk about, that is a controlling motives, that is a low autonomy. How the low autonomy works. So, therefore, if the external regulations, reinforcement, gaining rewards or avoiding punishment is there, and therefore, lot of efforts are made by the employees to prove themselves, right, and there is no support from the organization, no policies, no procedures, no there is any clear cut regulation is there which can support them, and if these type of situations are there, then definitely in that case these controlling motives and low autonomy will be there, and if there is a low autonomy, then definitely in that case the persons will be demotivated. So, what is becoming important is that there is a degree of internalization. So, degree of internalization of the employees with the organization will be, that is the how they are connected with the intrinsic motivation, and then autonomy is there. So, definitely we will find that is they are highly integrated with the work culture, work practices, organization and employees. However, if there is no external regulations, as a result of which the employees will find low internalization, and if there is a low internalization, then in that case they will go for these very low autonomy, and controlling motives will be there. So, however, this becomes very important, that is the how we can keep the high motivated employees. To keep the high motivated employees, this becomes important, that is the we are having the high internalization. What is high internalization? High internalization is that my knowledge and whatever my skills are there, right, that is the whatever the my cognitive asset, this cognitive asset I am contributing towards the organization, then definitely in that case this high internalization will be there, and high internalization the organization also can support. Organization has to create, because if they want the integrated employees, so what is required? Organizations through practices, like for example, when we talk about the ESOP, employee shares on profit. If we talk about the ESOP, the employee shares on profit, and then that is becoming the extrinsic motivations, right, and the more you create the need of autonomy, high autonomy is there, and then this high autonomy, and that is creating the integrated is there, and then this internalization of high internalization of the employees to their competency, that is leading to the successful understanding of the employees. So, therefore, it becomes very important, that is the we are going for these high internalization, high autonomy, and therefore, through the intrinsic motivation, and then we are making these satisfying the basic psychological needs. So, therefore, in that case, if organization wants that their employee should be highly motivated, so and then we want that is their need for autonomy, need for competence and need for relatedness, that has to be satisfied with the basic psychological needs, then this model it's giving a direction to keep highly motivated employees at the workplace and minimize the amotivation, because that is the lack of intentionality and the personal causation, and therefore, in that case the employees will be looking towards the more motivated and highly employees. So, in these individuals either lack the intention to act or act passively, as I mentioned, and in external regulations doing an activity only to obtain a reward. So, when we talk about the introjected regulations here, right. So, therefore, the regulations of behavior through self worth contingencies, that is a self esteem and the guilt is there. So, identified regulations are there, doing an activity because one identifies with his value or meaning. These are the terminologies which we have used into the this model, and integrated regulations identifying with the value of an activity to the point that it becomes part of the individual's it is said to be the autonomous, and intrinsic motivation for doing the activity for his own sake, one finds activity inherently is interesting is there, that we will discuss in our next session on the work motivation. Thank you.